Look, let's be honest, America has a bit of a racism problem. Racism can be difficult to quantify, but studies, surveys, and reports provide some insights. Factors often used to assess racism in states include hate crime statistics, reports from civil rights organizations, voting rights restrictions, police brutality cases, and public opinion surveys on racial attitudes. Think of it like this. We're about to embark on a road trip through the unsettling landscape of American racism. We'll be using a cocktail of statistics, historical context, and maybe even a dash of uncomfortable laughter to understand how these states earned their less-than-stellar rankings. Buckle up, everyone, because it's going to be a bumpy ride. Oh, Mississippi. Where do we even begin? This state's history is like a textbook on how to systemically oppress a group of people for centuries. We're talking about the birthplace of Jim Crow laws, the state with the highest number of lynchings in American history, and a place where the Confederate flag still flies with unsettling pride. Mississippi, you're like that one relative who insists on bringing up the Civil War at every family gathering. The state consistently ranks at the bottom in terms of racial equality, with massive disparities in income, education, and healthcare. And let's not forget about the persistent voter suppression efforts that make it harder for black people to exercise their fundamental right to vote. Now we know what you're thinking, but surely not everyone in Mississippi is racist. And you're right, they're not. There are good people everywhere fighting for equality and justice. But unfortunately, Mississippi, your history and present-day realities paint a pretty grim picture. Roll Tide? More like roll back the clock on civil rights? Alabama, the heart of Dixie, where the love for tradition apparently extends to outdated and discriminatory practices. From the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, where civil rights marchers were brutally attacked, to present-day voter suppression tactics, Alabama seems determined to hold on to its troubled past. Let's talk about voter ID laws, shall we? Alabama implemented some of the strictest in the nation, and then conveniently closed DMVs in predominantly black counties. It's almost like they're trying to win a most creative obstacles to voting award, and frankly, it's not a good look. Alabama has one of the highest rates of police brutality against black people in the country. But hey, at least they have beautiful beaches, right? Just try not to think about the state's history of racial segregation while you're soaking up the sun. Bonjour from Louisiana, where the food is spicy, the music is soulful, and the racism is, unfortunately, deeply ingrained. This state has a long and complicated history with race, from its French and Spanish colonial past to its role in the Confederacy. Louisiana has a disturbingly high incarceration rate, particularly for black residents. In fact, it has the highest incarceration rate in the world. And let's not forget about the ongoing issues with police brutality and excessive force. So the next time you're enjoying a bowl of gumbo or dancing to some Zydeco music, remember that beneath the surface of this vibrant state lies a dark undercurrent of racism that continues to plague its people. Georgia, you're on our mind, and not in a good way. Look, we all love a good peach cobbler as much as the next person, but Georgia's recent election shenanigans have left a sour taste in our mouths. From accusations of voter suppression to purging voter rolls with the enthusiasm of a spring cleaning spree, it seems Georgia is determined to make voting as difficult as possible, especially for black voters. And let's not forget about the ongoing debate over racial gerrymandering, where electoral districts are drawn to dilute the voting power of minority groups. Georgia, we thought you were better than this. You hosted the Olympics, for crying out loud. You're supposed to be a beacon of unity and progress, not a cautionary tale about the fragility of democracy. Hold on to your hats, folks, because we're heading to South Carolina, a state where the ghosts of the Confederacy seem to be alive and well. And by alive and well, we mean actively hindering progress on racial equality. Let's start with the elephant in the room, or rather, the Confederate flag that flew over the state capitol until 2015. Look, we understand that history is complicated, but clinging to symbols of hate and oppression isn't exactly a recipe for healing and unity. Generations of slavery followed by Jim Crow laws have created a massive wealth gap between white and black residents. So, South Carolina, while you may have beautiful beaches and charming historic cities, it's time to confront your past and present demons. Remember, acknowledging the problem is the first step towards solving it. Welcome to Arkansas, the natural state where the beauty of the Ozark Mountains stands in stark contrast to the ugliness of its racial disparities. From education to healthcare to the criminal justice system, it seems like Arkansas has a knack for leaving its black residents behind. Let's talk about education, shall we? Arkansas consistently ranks near the bottom in terms of educational attainment for black students. And then there's the issue of policing. Arkansas has a long and troubling history of racial profiling and police brutality. It seems like driving while black is practically a crime in some parts of the state. Arkansas, it's time to step up and address these systemic issues. Yeehaw, and welcome to Texas, the Lone Star State, where everything is bigger, including, unfortunately, the racism problem. From the Alamo to the Rio Grande, Texas has a long and complicated history with race, and let's just say, it hasn't always been pretty. Texas has been at the forefront of the fight against illegal immigration, but their policies often target Latino communities, regardless of their citizenship status. And let's not forget about the ongoing battle over voting rights. Texas has implemented some of the strictest voter ID laws in the country, which disproportionately disenfranchise minority voters. Texas, you're a state with so much potential, but you're letting your prejudices hold you back. Remember, diversity is your strength, not your enemy. Welcome to Kentucky, the bluegrass state, where they're known for their bourbon horses and, unfortunately, a disturbingly high rate of hate crimes. For a state that prides itself on its southern hospitality, Kentucky seems to have a real problem with intolerance. From racist graffiti to violent assaults, Kentucky has seen a disturbing increase in hate-motivated incidents in recent years. It's almost like some people in Kentucky missed the memo that it's the 21st century, and bigotry is so last season. And let's not forget about the racial disparities in the justice system. Kentucky has a long history of racial profiling, police brutality, and mass incarceration, disproportionately impacting black communities. Kentucky, it's time to face the music. And it's not a bluegrass tune. It's time to address the root causes of hate and inequality in your state and create a more just and equitable society for all. Howdy folks, and welcome to Tennessee, the volunteer state, where the music is sweet, the barbecue is finger-licking good, and the racism, unfortunately, is alive and well. From the legacy of slavery to the present-day struggles for racial justice, Tennessee's history is a tangled web of progress and persistent inequality. Now we know what you're thinking. Tennessee, the home of country music and Graceland? Surely it can't be that bad. But hold your horses, because Tennessee has a dark side. It's a state where Confederate monuments still stand tall, a testament to a painful past that some refuse to let go of. Tennessee has seen its fair share of protests and demonstrations, from the fight for civil rights to the Black Lives Matter movement. Tennessee, it's time to reckon with your past, address your present, and build a future where all Tennesseans can thrive, regardless of the color of their skin. Welcome to Missouri, the show-me state, where they showed us the ugly face of racism during the Ferguson protests. The death of Michael Brown, an unarmed black teenager, at the hands of a white police officer sparked outrage and protests, exposing the deep racial tensions and inequalities that plague this state. Ferguson became a flashpoint, a symbol of the systemic racism and police brutality that black Americans face every day. The images of heavily armed police officers clashing with protesters were broadcast around the world, forcing America to confront its uncomfortable truths. But Missouri, it's not just Ferguson. From the streets of St. Louis to the rural communities, racism permeates many aspects of life. Racial disparities in education, healthcare, and the criminal justice system are stark reminders of the work that still needs to be done. Missouri, you have a choice to make. You can continue to ignore the cries for justice and equality, or you can choose to be a beacon of progress. So, there you have it folks, our whirlwind tour of America's most racist states. These rankings are not meant to shame or condemn, but to spark conversation and inspire action. Racism is a complex and pervasive issue, and these states are just a snapshot of a larger national problem. Many people in these states actively work against racism and advocate for equality. It's crucial to remember that change happens from the ground up, and there are countless individuals and organizations fighting tirelessly for justice and equality.